Hello, friends. At the end of next week is the opening ceremony for the Summer Olympics in Paris, and I, for one, am looking forward to it. Do you remember when the Olympics were here in Atlanta back in '96? I was in the Army at the time, and many of the soldiers from our engineer battalion down near Savannah were sent up here to drive buses and help with the security checkpoints and whatnot. But our commander was from Atlanta himself, and he also knew that I was from here, so he sent me up as well to help with Defense Department VIPs that came into town to, quote, review the troops, kind of, and give moral support, but we knew they were really here just as an excuse to go to a few events. But I got to meet the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Assistant Secretary of Defense. They would fly into Peachtree DeKalb Airport, and we needed to let the handlers know, their handlers know, where to take them and how long it might take to get there. But of course, with all of the crowds here for the Olympics, everything was up in the air anyway. All bets are off. I did manage, though, to get tickets to some of the events, not only for myself, but also for my parents and my sister. And I remember going to the Olympic Stadium before it became the Braves Turner Field, and we watched some of the track and field events. I remember Jackie Joyner-Kersee, one of the big names of the time on the women's side. We also went to a field hockey game, my first that I remember. It was Pakistan and some other nation that to this day I cannot remember who it was, but the first one I'd ever seen, so that was interesting. Now, one of the most interesting things along the way was when we were in the stands watching these events or standing in line to get some concessions or even riding the MARTA train from downtown back up in this direction. I could hear people talking in a whole variety of languages and accents, and I knew people were here from all over the place, all around the world. Now, while there's a sense, of course, of competition between the athletes and to some degree between nations, of course, especially in those days when you still had, Russia competing against the United States and some of those tensions. In general, though, there seemed to be a great sense of community at the Olympic Games. Most of the athletes actually lived together. They lived in what are now the North Avenue dorms at Georgia Tech, right next to the interstate. And it's amazing to have all of these people from different countries, speaking different languages, but coming together in one place. And I was very proud that my city was the one that was hosting this event that brought people together from all around the world. In our world today, those events, unfortunately, seem few and far between. It's partly why I so look forward to this one. It's so easy to get caught up in just watching out for ourselves or pointing out our disagreements with other people or even attacking people who believe differently than we do or have different ideas. It's amazing when we have some common cause that brings us together. I've experienced a similar thing to the Olympics just when I go out, for example, to the hunger walk that we did earlier that supports the Atlanta Community Food Bank. And there are people there from all different kinds of faith traditions, as well as a whole bunch of different nonprofit organizations and even some corporations, but they're all there to support the work of the Atlanta Community Food Bank. The same thing happened this week earlier when some of us went to see Jersey Boys to support the CAC. And while we were there were not only us Presbyterians there, but I also saw a priest wearing a clerical collar. I saw a man wearing a Jewish yarmulke on the back of his head, and all sorts of folks that were there. And then Francis Horton got up and described the work of the CAC and how through all these different people's support, how many people had received food assistance last year, how children get backpacks because school's about to start. They'll get these backpacks of school supplies, or how many evictions had been prevented in this last year and how people received job training. I guess it has always been the case that we tend to let our differences get in the way of doing things in the name of God. We have to find ways around those differences that we seem to sort of make too concrete. After all, even the 12 tribes of Israel were all quite different from each other and even fought against each other from time to time. There were jealousies and disagreements and squabbles over territory. We don't often think about that, but eventually it even resulted in some of the tribes splitting off into the northern kingdom of Israel, while a couple of other tribes became the southern kingdom of Judah, and they never could get along with each other. And the disciples, for that matter, they range from fishermen to a tax collector to a former zealot, and we think the author of Luke and Acts was maybe a physician. So they came from all kinds of different backgrounds and ideas and even politics. And they were still caught up too in the petty divisions, like arguing about which one of them was the greatest, or which one would really get the seat of honor in Jesus' kingdom that they expected. And at Pentecost, the Spirit had to help the disciples speak in a whole range of languages so that they could share the gospel with people who had come to Jerusalem from all around the known world. It just seems like something good to think about these days. What are the things of the world that we let divide us? And what are the things of faith that might bring us together? Something to think about when we turn on the Olympics next week and we see all of those different nations parading in and we feel pride for our own, and yet we may think about those divisions of our world and how our faith leads us to a bigger picture and to a little more unity and love with one another. So I hope that you experience God's peace and grace and love this week in your own life. And I hope that you have occasions to share those same things with the people around you. So go in peace, friends. Amen.